Hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Women Parlay. And I am your host, Leanne Mair. Now, today's episode is going to be something I'm going to call a little bit more personal than usual, because I feel like it's a topic. It's partially about identity, but not in the way you think about, or you might be thinking about it. Because I'm going to talk today about something I rarely ever give any space or time to, which is motherhood and identity. And the reason I wanted to talk about this particular, or from this particular angle, especially when I was moving out of corporate into being an entrepreneur, somebody gave me the advice that basically said, don't talk about being a mom because people will associate you being a mom first. And then they won't take the rest of the things that you have to say seriously. Now, interesting, this came from a woman, but the point was this: I took that advice to heart, and the reason why I took that advice to heart is I'm gonna take a few steps back, and what I'm gonna say is, when I became pregnant for the first time, one of the things that I was really, really preoccupied with was my own identity. The reason being is as soon as you get pregnant, everybody forgets about you as the woman, and you pretty much just become this vehicle, this carrier for this new being that's coming. So everyone asks, how is the pregnancy? How is the baby doing? But people forget that you're still a person, that you have your own interests, tastes, and all conversations revolve around the human being that you're growing rather than the human being that you are. So when I was pregnant for the first time, I was really, really focused on my identity. And as a person, as a mother, I absolutely love. I just realized you can't actually see. Sorry, I'm getting so comfortable you can't actually see. Hold on. Black woman parlay. Hello. Um, as as a woman, um, and becoming, as a mother, I love being a mother. I do have maternal instincts, but I do not fit within the traditional mother group, and I'm proud of that. And that's just who I am, and I'm happy to be that person. I'm the kind of mom that doesn't expect my children to be the deliverers or the fulfillers of my happiness. I would never put that burden on them. It's not for them to fulfill my life. It's for me to help them, nurture them, educate them, put them on the right track, help them be the best people that they are. And they're people now. They're not many versions of me. They're not here to live out my dreams. They're not here to fulfill anything that I might want to live. They are their own people. And I've been very, very clear about that as a person. And I've been very, very clear about that um, in my mind when it came to my identity and what kind of mother I want to be and what kind of Leanne I want to be. But interestingly enough, although gender equity is fully the locus of everything that I did, I really took to heart this thing about, don't step forward, don't mention motherhood too much because. And when you unpack that advice, and when I unpack that advice, that pretty much goes against everything that I fight for. Because the reality is, yes, I am Leanne. I am a woman. I am a Black woman. I also am a mother. And those are three, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, blah, blah, blah. All of these parts are actually intrinsic to my identity. So, how does it become less relevant to talk about the issues you face around motherhood in the face of talking about what your experience is within the workplace or as an entrepreneur or as someone with a startup or as all these other parts? And it made me really realize and focus that that mindset is as much about diluting what motherhood is and that there's still only one way to be a mother, because I can only let the perceptions of motherhood affect me if I subscribe to them. But I don't. I am me, and each person, each mother has their own mothering style. And I'm proud to be the way I am as a mother. And it shouldn't make it any less appropriate to have these kinds of conversations or talk about motherhood, you know, as it pertains to my life, your life, whether you show up and talk about it in LinkedIn because it has an effect, it has an impact. And it's a part of your identity that cannot be dissected when you are a mother. It cannot be dissected because it's part of who you are, and it is one of your newly assumed identities. And the thing about this new identity is that it takes, or when I say identity, it takes time for you to negotiate it took me time to negotiate and really get to the point. You know how I said at the beginning, I was completely obsessed and focused with my identity. Then I became a mother. Then I was focused on being the perfect mother. And many of those things that made me think about being the perfect mother were driven by stereotypical views of what motherhood is. But what I noticed is in my pursuit of those things, I wasn't happy as Leanne. It wasn't something that made me happy. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion, and I still stand by it. I know people say happy wife, happy life, blah, blah, blah. Happy mom, happy child. Um, and it meant that I had to push a lot more for things that made me happy as me. And some of these things, like, it sounds very basic, but I'll give you an example. One of the things was ensuring that I maintained friendships with my friends who were without children or single. I don't believe and didn't believe in being in a cocoon because you now become a mother. That wasn't for me. Um, I went out of my way, and I was lucky that I could do this. But like at the very beginning, I had the time and capacity. I was reading probably a book a week when my baby was sleeping. I went out of my way. I wanted to be informed. I didn't just want to feel like I was isolated and no longer who I was. And slowly, I built up the confidence to try and, I'm going to always call it, reconcile, because there was this new assumed identity that there's no real manual for. There's no manual how to negotiate motherhood. There's no real manual how to negotiate motherhood, going back to work full time, dealing with societal expectations, dealing with, quite frankly, the expectations of people around you that you won't work full time because you're a mom, dealing with all of that, and then coming to grips with what is it that you want, as in what did I want, and how can I achieve it? And really thinking about all of that, but also, and this is really the critical part, and I still have this now, having women, and they don't always have to be relations, but I have great role models. I have fantastic role models and friends who inspire me in how they reconcile their identities. They inspire me to be brave. They inspire me to, how do you, I don't necessarily always have, what's the word? I want to call it mum guilt. But at the same time, it's a very real feeling if your child is crying when you're going to go away for 5 days, right? It's not like you're heartless, you don't care. Of course I do. But it's always great having other mothers around who really uplift and support, but also just equally friends who don't have any children, male and female, who just go, do you know what? Don't know how you do it, or think this is great that you're doing. You're creating a path for me, because there's always someone in front of us that's done what we'd like to do. And there's always somebody who's going to be, when I say behind us, not as in developmentally, but different stages, who looks and goes, I wish I could do that when I'm at that phase. But it's a constant reconciliation, it's a constant shift. But what I have to realize, and what I have come to realize, is talking about motherhood, and this is why this particular episode is really important to me. Talking about motherhood does not diminish the value of my messaging. It doesn't diminish the value of me being able to run a business. It doesn't diminish the value of being able to run a charity. It doesn't diminish my credibility. And it also is really important because it's a huge piece of the puzzle that creates the life that I have. Because the opposite happened for me. As soon as I had a child, I wanted to work more. I wanted to work more. I wanted to provide more. I wanted to role model more. And these are all really important narratives to anybody, for anybody who's thinking, you know what, I want to hide this mother bit in the background. And you will be, in general, see in my content, whether it's on LinkedIn, as in, I don't post my kids because I don't want to. They can decide to do that when they're 18, and I'm pretty strict on that. Not pretty, very strict on that. So unless someone's accidentally posted my children online, there shouldn't be my kids online anywhere. And they can do that when they're 16, 18, whatever it is. But for now, no. But what's really important for me is going forward, whichever platform it is, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, it would be not just remiss of me, but it would also be fundamentally wrong for me to not acknowledge the part of my life that is motherhood, because it's a big part of my life. It's not who I am, but it's part of who I am. It's part of an identity that I chose. But going on this journey, and this is going to be a forever journey, just, it's this part about just as much as you intentionally, or just as much as I intentionally live, the question is, how can you reconcile how you enter into parenthood, in this case, into motherhood? How can you reconcile it with the rest of your life and how you like to live? What is possible? And how do you mesh the two together? That still has that element of before and after, because you can't change the finality of that. But it can be a transition, and it can be, what's the word, cohesive. It can work together really well. It's not just about, oh, I've become a mother. I see, like, loads of these videos that are like, oh yeah, as soon as you have kids, you can't do. And yeah, there are things you can't do. I don't, when I say, and please, I know, look, you might say to me, there's loads of things you can't do, Leanne. That might be the case. But it's how do you think about it? And how much of the things that I can't do are that important to me? A lot of them are, to be perfectly honest. I'm just thinking, is there something that I can't do? Yeah, there is one thing that I can't do. I can't lie. Well, I can actually. No, I was about to lie, so I can't lie in. I can actually, because my husband will take the kids and I'll lie in, so that works. Or my mom will take the kids and I'll lie in, so it does happen. But the point is, motherhood is a part of my identity. Being a mother is a part of my identity, and it's something. And this is just encouragement for anybody who is there and is like, oh, I want to be seen as this kind of person, and thinking there's a part of your life you have to highlight to prove that you are a credible business. You don't. Mother's issues, if you're a mother, it's absolutely pertinent to your life. It's absolutely pertinent to how you see things, how you deal with things, how you manage your schedule. It's not the same. There are other responsibilities. And I have actively, wrongly, but actively kept that part of my life outside of the public sphere and the impacts of becoming a mother. But that has influenced, it has influenced a lot, and continues to influence a lot, and will always influence my decisions. Because I do think about Generation Alpha as an alcor that my children belong to. I do think about legacy. I do think about the workplace of the future. I do think about opportunities. I think about all the things I talk to, first generation professionals about, building a network. How do you have that network? I do think about social capital. All of these things, I think about them in the context of potential challenges that my children can also face, as well as the challenges I faced when I was moving into corporate, and so on and so forth. So it's really relevant. And this is just really a message to say to anybody who's having that feeling of, I'm worried about if I talk about motherhood more, it just has to be reflective of your personality. That's what I'm going to say. So if you look at, probably, if someone was to go through my phone and look through 90% of my WhatsApps, you probably couldn't necessarily tell I was a mom. Not because I don't love my kids, of course I do. And I see, you have to always caveat things, right? But because it's a part of my identity, but it's not all of my identity. But we should have free realm to be able to showcase parts of our identity as we see fit. And it shouldn't feel like it's a negative, but rather a positive. And I think that's like, sometimes it's the hardest stage to get to, where do I find the balance that is right for me? How do I find the balance that is right for me? And to be honest, me finding the balance that is right for me has come to fruition with me making this podcast episode. And when I say came to fruition, it's something that I've been thinking about. It's something that I've been meditating on. It's something that I was like, yeah, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? But if I deconstruct my life, it's an absolute should. It's an absolute must. And it was a travesty on my part to have not brought it up when I am happily. I looked to I looked to the side. Happily, I was trying to find the right words. Happily, proudly, a mother. It's not all of me. It's not the thing that drives me. As I said, my children are not expected to fulfill my happiness, but it's a big part of my life, and that has an effect. Just as much as I was. And I think back to the days when I didn't have children. One of my bugbears, my ultimate bugbears, were when organizations used to talk about what they were doing for women, but what they meant was mothers. Oh, we do so much for women, and then they go and jump to maternity leave. That used to drive me it still drives me wild. It still drives me wild. Like, but ultimately, it's that part about embracing there are things that affect you as a mother specifically, and there are things that affect you as a woman. And it is completely and totally okay to talk about the differences, the nuances, what you experience. Yes, there's the gender pay gap. Absolutely, right. So you've got gender pay gap, you've got ethnicity pay gap, then you've got going out of work, coming back as a returner, trying to build a career post break, however long that might be, 3 months, 4 months, 1 year, 3 years, etc., etc. This is all part of the journey. And this is all part of my journey. And this has still shaped why I do what I do. It's not just one or the other. But the point is, and this is really the one that I wanted to get to, is it's a constant questioning of what makes sense for me and how can I reconcile that? And that might be privately, publicly, whichever way. And it also doesn't mean that you're going to feel comfortable doing this all at once. My oldest child is 5. It didn't happen all at once. It's going to take time, and it's okay for it to take time. But it's just a topic that I wanted to talk about, to say to anyone who's there that's like, I feel shy about talking about the particular nuance, challenge, development, balance of identity versus motherhood. Excuse me. The fight is real. The challenge is real. And you can only ever embrace it as much as you can. And no one can ask for more of you. That if someone's pushing you to say more and you don't feel comfortable, don't. And if someone's pushing you to say less and you want to say more, then don't listen. Because only you can specifically decide for you, number one. And number two is whatever challenges you may face individually, you're also the only person that can help solve that. So I guess the under or the overarching message is just the opinions of others factor in. Advice is always, not always, isn't always welcome. Advice may be welcome, but never forget that your path is yours individually. And just because somebody may have tried something and it has worked, it does not mean that that same approach will work for you. It does not mean that that same approach, tried and tested, yes, works for person one, does not mean that it will work for person two just because it's tried and tested. Even if 10 people have done it, it doesn't necessarily always mean it's going to be right for you. So wherever you may be on this journey of motherhood, identity, it's yours. And do what feels right for you, and not what anybody else says should be right for you. And that's in anything. whether it's building your career, whether it's starting a business, whether it's deciding to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, whatever it is, that's your decision, your path, your identity. And you have to happily live that and that be yours. So this is me also saying, I'm happily a mother and I'm putting it out there. So you'll see more content around that topic. You won't see my kids. You will probably hear about it in the context of careers, or maybe if I'm traveling, but or family friendly restaurants, perhaps, I don't know. I haven't really got that far as to thinking what exactly I'll share, but it's just to say, I feel happier sharing some elements, and we'll do. So that's it. So thank you as always for listening. You know where to find me: Instagram at LeanneMM. For all the corporate stuff, it's LinkedIn, Leanne Mair. And for TikTok, it's Leanne Mair 5, I think. I think it's that. And I'm still exploring. I don't know what this other platform's called. I've forgotten. Clapchat. But anyway, who knows? But thank you for listening as always. And until next time.